The long-awaited Dendro Archon has been locked away for a long time from her people, whether it be those in Sumeru or the many players who have patiently waited for her release as a playable character. As befitting her nature, she brings with her a unique and creative array of abilities in her kit. This video serves to inform players on how her kit works and how she can be used, so that they may gauge the value she adds to your account. Nahida's role itself can be simply understood as a Dendro enabler, providing consistent elemental applications to allow her teams to make full use of the new Dendro reactions. While the role may be simple, it is nonetheless valuable, and her personal damage, method of application, buffs, and unique AoE mechanics help set her apart. Before we delve into the depths of her kit, please note this video is simply meant to serve as a reliable source of information from a theory crafting perspective as to what Nahida can provide to teams should you choose to roll her. If you want to roll Cuzimori for adorable design, heartfelt story, fascinating lore, or colourful personality, we do not seek to discourage you in the slightest. Instead, we simply seek to inform you on how Nahida can be played, and what she can offer to help you decide if she is the right character for you. Further, everything in this video is subject to change with future releases and discoveries. As mentioned earlier, Nahida serves as an enabler for Dendro reactions, with a kit full of unique mechanics that allows her to stand out from her competition. These will now be covered in detail. As a Catalyst user, Nahida's normal and charged attacks apply Dendro by default. Her normal attack talent is otherwise relatively standard and unimpressive, especially considering Nahida's tendency to build elemental mastery, which her normal attacks do not scale with. Still, their good rate of Dendro application makes Nahida worthwhile as an on-field unit in certain teams. Nahida's skill is the centerpiece of her kit, defining much of her value. The skill has both a tap version and a hold version, both of which apply a Seed of Skanta to enemies. The main difference between the two versions is in their range. The tap version affects enemies in a short, circular radius around Nahida, while the hold version triggers a movable, camera-like view that causes enemies in the frame to be marked with the Seed of Skanta, which lasts 25 seconds. Both the tap and hold version also have short cooldowns, at 5 and 6 seconds respectively. All enemies marked by the seed will be linked up to a certain distance. When a reaction is triggered on any of these enemies, or when they take damage from Bloom, Hyper Bloom, or Burgeon damage, the Seed of Skanta will cause all linked enemies to take an instance of Tri-Karma Purification damage. This can only be triggered once in a certain interval, which is at base 2.5 seconds but can be reduced. This Tri-Karma Purification damage is the source of much of Nahida's off-field Dendro application, energy generation, and damage. The damage it deals is unique in the sense that its multiplier scales directly off of both attack and elemental mastery, with a bias towards the latter. This makes it not only the first ability to scale directly off of elemental mastery, but also the first to scale directly off of two stats. As the damage and Dendro application is done to all linked enemies, this greatly reduces the need for grouping in Nahida teams. Tri-Karma Purification also generates 3 particles upon dealing damage on an 8-second cooldown. Her elemental skills' long duration, short cooldown, good damage, good Dendro application, and high utility make Nahida a flexible and easy to slot in unit. Nahida's burst primarily serves as a buff to her skill, as well as a way to activate her Ascension 1 passive. It creates the Shrine of Maya, which, as long as the player is inside it, confers various effects depending on the elemental type of her teammates. Pyro teammates increase the damage dealt by Tri-Karma Purification, Electro teammates reduce the cooldown between Tri-Karma Purification procs, and Hydro teammates increase the duration of her burst. Her burst has a long base duration of 15 seconds, a short cooldown of 13.5 seconds, and costs 50 energy. While this makes it possible to maintain 100% uptime on her burst, whether it is necessary or feasible to do so depends on Nahida's team. That said, it is nonetheless a powerful buffing tool and will almost always see use. It is simply that the value and ease of maintaining uptime on it can vary significantly. Nahida's first Ascension passive is directly linked to her burst. While the player is in the Shrine of Maya, the active character gains 25% of the elemental mastery of the unit with the highest elemental mastery in the team. While this typically is Nahida, it does not necessarily have to be. The EM boost it provides also has varying value, as it only buffs the on-field character. This means it is only useful if the on-field character is a reaction trigger, or has talents that scale off of EM. However, this does mean that Nahida can benefit significantly from this passive herself if used in an on-field capacity. Nahida's 4th Ascension passive gives her bonus damage percent and crit rate for her Tri-Karma Purification based on her Elemental Mastery. This, in tandem with her Tri-Karma Purification scaling off of EM and her Ascension 1 passive, is what makes EM such a valuable stat on Nahida. While not applicable to combat, the quality of life provided by her skill is also highly appreciable, significantly easing resource gathering, as well as occasionally giving humorous insight into some Sumeri NPCs.
Our workload is increasing again.
Everyone hold hands!
Luke Shaw isn't from the desert, but he's pretty cute.
This, alongside the easy AoE damage provided by her skill, makes her very comfortable for Overworld, joining the ranks of Yulan, Yai, Kazuha, and Sayu as good quality of life options. Nahida scales off of 3 main stats: Elemental Mastery, Crit, and Damage percent, while also having some ER requirements. The importance of these stats with regards to others will generally depend on the role she is used in, which can broadly be divided into 3: off-field, on-field, and Nilou Bloom. In an off-field role, almost all of Nahida's damage comes from her Tri-Karma Purification. This makes Elemental Mastery particularly valuable for her, and it is advised to aim for about 900 to 1000 EM on her in total in such a role, including buffs. This is especially important if the on-field unit in these teams benefits from Nahida's Ascension 1 EM share. After reaching this breakpoint, stats such as damage percent and crit become more valuable. Her ER requirements in such a team can vary, but is generally between 120 to 150%, and players are generally advised to meet the ER requirements for a team before moving on to other stats. This may be lower if Nahida is unable to burst regularly or in teams with Raiden. In an on-field role, as she can benefit from her own Ascension 1 and her normals comprise a part of her damage which do not scale with Elemental Mastery, damage percent and crit become more important, especially if another unit is providing the source for Ascension 1's EM share. That said, EM is still a highly valuable stat and should not be neglected. Her ER requirements tend to be lower here, usually being from about 100 to 120%, though they may be higher in a few energy-starved teams such as Burgeon. Finally, Nilou Bloom teams form an exception to both the above listed priorities, due to Nahida being able to trigger a portion of high damage blooms that scale off of her EM. It is advised to focus on Elemental Mastery above all other stats for such a build. As for her artifact set, 4 Deepwood Memories is her best option if there are no other holders on the team, and is generally strong for all of Nahida's teams and very easy to maintain uptime on. If another holder is on the team, Nahida can opt for other sets instead. 4 Gilded Dreams is potent, however, it can be occasionally inconsistent as its 4-set bonus relies on Nahida triggering reactions, which may not always be possible. Nahida's skill hits after a reaction is triggered, opening up possibilities for there to be no reaction triggered when Nahida applies Dendro. Tenacity of the Millilith can be considered if Nahida is used with teammates who highly appreciate attack buffs. Beyond this, 2-piece combinations of Gilded Dreams, Wanderer's Troop, and Deepwood Memories can be considered. Nahida also is fortunate to have strong 5-star and 4-star weapons. Her best in slot is, to little surprise, her signature weapon 1000 Floating Dreams. While potent for all of Nahida's roles due to providing Nahida with generally useful stats and a team EM buff, it is not better by a huge margin over her other weapons. Kagura's Verity also performs admirably on her. It serves better in an on-field role when Nahida can easily gain stats by recasting her skill. However, even with only 1 stack as an off-field unit, the weapon is strong. In an on-field role, Lost Prayer to the Sacred Winds, Solar Pearl, and Widsith are all powerful options. Widsith in particular, while serviceable for any role, gains value the quicker one can clear content, as its large downtime causes it to lose potency in longer battles. Sacrificial Fragments, Wandering Evenstar, Mapamir, and Magic Guide are all competitive options for Nahida. Wandering Evenstar is particularly potent if Nahida's teammates benefit from attack. Free-to-play users will generally choose between Mapamir and Magic Guide, with both being strong. Magic Guide is generally better if players can ensure high uptime on its passive, without Dendro Aura taking over, else Mapamir is preferred. Finally, Nahida can opt to use more supportive catalysts to trade some of her damage for team buffs. Hakushin Ring is especially strong for this if Nahida is with Electro teammates, as Nahida does not lose much damage in such a scenario if opting to use it. Favonia's Codex on high refinements can be considered for on-field Nahida to reduce the entire team's requirements, though its value is lower in off-field builds. Both Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers and Prototype Amber severely neuter her personal damage, but have some valuable effects. Thrilling Tales is very potent with strong attack scaling teammates, while Prototype Amber can allow Nahida to provide some sustain on more fragile teams. Due to her flexibility, Nahida can fit on many different teams that use different Dendro reactions. These include Catalyze, Hyperbloom, Nilu Bloom, Burgeon, and potentially even Burning. Catalyze refers to the group of reactions involving the Quicken state, namely Spread and Aggravate. In these teams, an on-field Nahida can make full use of her normals to trigger a high quantity of spread reactions, while simultaneously enabling off-field Electro teammates such as Fischl, Lisa, and Yai. Alternatively, Nahida can act as an off-field unit for an on-field spread or aggravate carry, such as Sino, Keqing, or Tignari. These teams are simple to use with strong damage potential. It is worth noting, however, that Nahida's strong Dendro application, even from an off-field role, can cause her to not leave behind any Electro aura on the enemy. While this is generally not an issue, it can cause Animo units like Kazuha to not be able to swirl consistently, and thus lose a huge chunk of damage if used in such a team. Hyperbloom teams use Nahida to generate Dendro cores from a Hydro applier such as Xingqiu, Yelan, Kokomi, Ayato, and Candace for an Electro unit such as Kuki or Raiden to trigger Hyperbloom reactions off of. Alternatively, Animo units such as Kazuha can trigger Hyperblooms by swirling Electro application from units such as Fischl. In these teams, Nahida can run both off-field and on-field, depending on her teammates and their field time needs. As an off-field unit, she may want to run another Dendro unit to supplement her application, particularly in single target, though it is not necessary. Another offshoot of Hyperbloom teams called Quick Bloom is also viable, which focuses on maintaining Quicken while also getting occasional Hyperblooms from slow Hydro applicators, such as off-field Kokomi. These tend to play more similarly to the Catalyze teams discussed earlier. Nilu Bloom teams revolve around maximizing Nilu's Bloom buffing passives by generating Dendro cores with high EM units. Nahida fits this role perfectly, slotting in well in Nilu's typical 2 Hydro 2 Dendro teams with her, Kokomi or Barbara, and Dendro Traveler or Kole. Nahida also has potential as an on-field driver in triple Hydro teams of this style, having potentially enough application to even occasionally overwhelm Hydro aura, causing the Hydro units to become the reaction trigger. Whether this is worthwhile is being tested. Burgeon teams use a Pyro unit, such as Toma or Zhongling, to trigger Burgeon on Dendro cores created by Nahida and a Hydro teammate. Alternatively, Kazuha can also take Toma or Zhongling's place in such a team if paired alongside Bennett. Nahida is typically used in an off-field role here, alongside Hydro options such as Kokomi, Child, or Ayato. While Nahida can opt to take an on-field role, she will require 2 Hydro units at minimum alongside her to keep up with her application and prevent burning. Burning teams tend to be a bit of an outlier in Dendro teams, as while the reaction is not bad, it lacks the units to truly abuse it in the current roster. That said, Nahida can use the Pyro aura for burning to allow cryo units like Rosaria or Ganyu to melt. The setups for this and whether it is worthwhile over typical melt enablers such as Zhongling is being experimented with. Nahida has generally strong constellations, however, none of these are important for her usage and she is a fully complete unit at C0. Her C1, which causes her burst to add 1 character of each element to its buff value, can be deceptive in its strength. While it seems powerful, and can be so on the right teams, it is generally not too significant in value. Her C2, on the other hand, is very potent, providing a sizable damage boost to essentially all of Nahida's teams due to the buffs it gives to Dendro reactions, and is a good stopping point for those interested in her constellations. Nahida's C3 provides additional talent levels to her skill. While appreciated, the damage boost is not as large as some other units, due to Nahida's focus on Dendro reactions reducing its value. Her C4 is a simple and strong EM buffer herself. The burst talent levels from her C5 are not useless, but provide very little in the way of damage. Her C6 is possibly her most interesting constellation, giving her 6 instances of huge AoE damage when hitting opponents marked with Seeds of Skanta with her normal and charged attacks. However, using it effectively may require a playstyle change from Nahida due to needing field time, and thus it may find itself wasted or awkward to abuse in teams where Nahida is used as an off-field unit. As the Dendro Archon, it is unsurprising that Nahida is the face of her element, being able to effectively act as an enabler for all of the element's reactions. This makes her a highly valuable pull for those who want to make full use of the new element. That said, it would be hard pressed to say she is necessary, as other units can substitute for her in her teams with varying levels of effectiveness, sometimes better, but usually worse. However, even if she is sometimes outdone in specific niches, no other unit can match her flexibility or exact set of utility traits, and this will likely be the case for some time to come. Therefore, Nahida is a worthwhile addition to your roster for those looking to use Dendro reactions, even though she is not strictly necessary. Thank you kindly for watching Kaching Main's Theorycrafting staff's thoughts on Nahida, and what we think you should know before you wish for her. If you think we've missed anything, or have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments below, where we will do our best to answer. Also be sure to check out our Nahida quick guide linked in the description if you are looking for an easy to reference written resource for the details in this video.